Welcome to A Free Solution. I'm Kevin Wills here today, joined by Tim, the Freedom Variant O'Connor.
I'm here, brother. How are you?
Oh, living the dream, Tim. Living the dream. How are you?
Honestly, I'm kind of awesome. I got my new computer. I think we're not going to have the latency issues that we were having the last time around.
Heck
It is,
yeah.
it is like messing with my sound right now, but I think we'll get into the swing of things.
We'll get over it.
What?
Yeah. I mean, are you what kind of tower are you working with here now?
It's a Tower of Power, man. The
Tower of
Dell
Power, that's what it
Inspiron
is.
97 BR549 something.
Are you using Microsoft Windows? Are you like one of the Linux guys or
Me, I'm like, how do I get Edge off my computer? Because it keeps popping up. Like I'm that guy. Like I
Well,
don't know.
there
I
was
don't
a
know
point
what
in
I'm doing.
time, if you recall, where the federal government wanted to sue Microsoft because they wanted to have Internet Explorer be the default browser for Microsoft, and they were claiming that they had an illegal monopoly on this. This is going to
Right.
be a theme of our show.
Yeah. Yeah.
The federal government did not succeed, and furthermore, the monopoly on monopoly. It was never really a monopoly. There's always other options, but the domination of Internet Explorer was short lived.
Yeah. Yeah. It's pretty much over. Now Edge is just begging for attention though. It's just there.
They
Like
want
you
you
get a
to,
new computer and it's like, we're you can't delete us. We're here for you. We're
yeah,
going to help you with something.
support you. I did briefly make Edge my default browser so I could use the Bing AI features, which is
Yeah.
like that's how it tried to trick me into it. All right, you just make this your default browser and you can get into our beta program. All right, fine.
You got
And
me for a
and
second.
now here I am still using Chrome
Yeah.
99% of the time.
Well, I'm like downloading Chrome, right? And it's like, are you sure you want to do that? Edge keeps popping on. Are you sure you want to do that? We run on the same technology. We run
Yeah,
on the
it's run
same
on
framework.
Chromium. It's fine, like no,
Well, nope,
but
you don't. Nope,
but
nope.
this is a long-winded way of saying that technology changes, and we're gonna go to wherever whatever product works for us. We're gonna talk about the ridiculous Department of Justice Apple lawsuit today. We're gonna talk about the bridge collapse stuff. We're gonna talk
Yeah.
about cannabis farmers failing in New York State. Something
I feel bad. I shouldn't laugh because I feel
No, yeah,
bad.
that's not funny for
It's
the
awful.
cannabis farmers, but like,
No,
man,
man.
did we everyone with like two brain cells to rub together knew this was gonna happen.
Yeah.
We could see it a million miles away. New York State is gonna screw this up, and lo and behold, New York State screwed up cannabis legalization. And so I know we got some folks out there. Alice, thanks for joining us. Alice on YouTube. Patricia's out there, and John's out there. Yeah, we're gonna talk about the bridge thing. Ban assault ships.
We do have to ban assault ships. Like, look,
Oh, don't worry, we already got the Jones Act. We're good,
Yeah.
and we have great takes from Thomas Massey, rare L take on.
Oh, really?
The Jones Act.
I'm gonna have to check it out. I'm gonna have to get prepped for
Oh,
this.
he did, yeah. So we're gonna talk about that because Thomas Massey coming out supported the Jones Act today. Like, did not see that coming.
I had a feeling that somebody was going to come out and be like, this was a foreign flag ship. I can't believe it's Thomas Massey, though. I'm so disappointed.
Yeah. So we're going to talk about, I'm going to read it. We're going to read that tweet. It's right at the top of his Twitter profile still.
Oh, man.
I know.
My man, Massey.
Yeah. And then we got a whole bunch of other stuff. So, just stay tuned to the show. Let's go in 5 seconds.
All right. Let's
jump right in. 3, 2.
Now, an hour of clarity for exhausted people of our nation mired in toxic partisanship. Left versus right, us versus them. While we pay to keep our politicians fighting, how do we, the people, rise up and solve the great challenges of our time? We do it by embracing freedom and liberty. There may be no such thing as a free lunch, but this hour is as close as it gets. Welcome to A Free Solution.
Welcome to A Free Solution. I'm Kevin Wills here today, joined by Tim, the Freedom Variant O'Connor.
I'm here, Kevin, man. I'm glad to be here. What a wild week of news. There's no way, like I sent you a list of things that I'm willing and wanting to talk about. We're not going to get to all of them.
No, we're not going to get to all of them there. And like, there's a few other things too. I was like, maybe we'll get to those, but like, I don't know. We'll see what we can get to today. I like to. We usually like to stick to one topic per segment, like for the first two, if we can. Sometimes it breaks into a couple, but and then the third segment, we got a bunch of stuff, and then we'll probably go into a bit of a bonus show.
Yeah.
As we do. WYSL audience, we occasionally, by occasionally I mean every show, talk for another half an hour at least after with other stuff. So if you're like, oh, it seemed like you're in the middle of a conversation, like how does this conversation end? Go look up our podcast, because a lot of times, we keep talking about whatever the last topic is for a little while, jump into a few other things. Go find our podcast. We talk between breaks, we talk afterwards.
Kevin, our podcast is all you got to do is punch in a free solution. It comes up on like 75,000 different platforms. You've done an amazing job. Yeah, it's everywhere. It's everywhere.
So go find it. But yeah, so today, folks, the headline topic for us is we're going to spend the first segment talking about the lawsuit that the Department of Justice is bringing against the iPhone, Apple product, the Apple Corporation's iPhone, because Merrick Garland is claiming that the iPhone has monopoly on the smartphone market. Tim, are you an iPhone user?
I am. Like,
wow.
I am an iPhone user. I am tempted to trade out of the iPhone thing. Like, it does some pretty cool stuff. Like, it makes some excellent clicking noises that I really like, and it moves a little bit. Like when I move my chest piece, I get a reaction from my phone. So it does some cool stuff.
I hate to surprise you, but like most smartphones do that now.
What? Get out of here, man.
But I know, Tim, it's tough to leave, and they're forcing you to stay with their illegal smartphone monopoly. You basically have no other options. Like, Tim, are you going to be one of those green bubble nerds? Like, people are going to make fun of you.
One thing I hate about my Apple phone, I don't know how to fix it, and maybe somebody out there who's smarter than me. I cannot send pictures, nor can I receive pictures from people who are not connected to Apple. Like, I don't even get them. Like, they don't even come through. And people are like, hey, did you get my picture? And I'm like, no, I've already explained this 1,000 times. My Apple will not accept your, like, whatever it is, man. Like,
that actually is part of the lawsuit. That
it is.
iMessage.
Thank God. No,
that iMessage does, like, I've never heard. So I am not an iPhone user. I have a Samsung phone. I've had the same one. This is the longest I've ever had a phone. I've actually had it for 3.5 years now, because I was buying like the G series phone for a while, and they're terrible. Like at the 2-year mark, when I would be up for like a new phone, they would break. Like, they're just totally brick.
Designed obsolescence.
Yeah, but the Samsung phone, I have like an S10. I'm very happy with it. Like, it's been a great phone, and despite Verizon pushing me to like upgrade my phone to like the newest Samsung model, I'm like, no, I'm good. I'm gonna use this till it breaks.
Yeah, no, I got like an iPhone 13. Now, as I've mentioned to everybody, I'm really like active, right? So, and I always have to have a phone in my pocket, because at any point during the day, I could have to order something, send an email, in addition to like climbing up roofs and leaning out over things. And, so I can remember I had like my iPhone 5, which I loved. And like, I tried to make it last forever, but I jumped into a skid steer and I smashed it. And I had to get like the iPhone 7, which I managed to stick with that for a couple years.
Another way that Apple is totally hurting their customers, not making them skid steer proof, Tim.
That's right.
They should have thought of that. Like, really, like this.
Wrong with these guys?
That's the same as planned obsolescence. There, it's just that not making them skid steer proof. Shame on them.
Well, I listened to a podcast called Behind the Bastards that you recommended to me about Steve Jobs, and all the problems with Apple are Steve Jobs' fault, because he's a literal, like, horrible human being, even though he's not with us anymore.
No, he's not.
He did all this stuff on purpose. He designed monopoly into the very first Apple product, and here we are now, decades later, still dealing with Apple's monopoly. And I think, Kevin, the only way to solve it is through government force, coercion, and violence. That's what I'm saying.
Tim once again continues to slip further and further into statism.
I am going to register as a Republican or a Democrat. Yeah. Doesn't matter.
Democrat. Whoa.
I know. Crazy.
Calm down, Tim.
Yeah.
No. So My video froze. But
You sound good though.
Oh, good. That's what's
Yeah.
important. That's just,
Yeah.
I think I look good in the frozen video, and,
You
and the
do.
folks in
It's perfect.
WSL are going to see that anyway. But
Yeah.
so let's talk about the actual like lawsuit though. Let's say we've been talking about like our own phones and like the Apple products and everything. What they're alleging in this lawsuit is essentially, again, so some of the things I had mentioned is that Apple makes it difficult for their products to interact with other types of products, right? Again,
Correct.
in the same suit that claims that iPhone has an illegal smartphone monopoly, they're saying it's too difficult for other companies to interact with their products.
Correct.
And again, just to be clear, they barely have a majority on U.S. smartphone users.
Right.
The Department of Justice is claiming 70%, but they're kind of using like a strange metric for that. It's like 70% of like kind of like people are using it for work and stuff. But but really it's about 60% of phone users. Everyone else has like different types of Android phones. It can be Windows, Samsung, LG, whatever, right?
Right.
You have plenty of options out there if you want to do that, if you want an alternative. But what some of those options do is that iPhone and Apple products don't necessarily interact with those outside products as well. iPhone's reason for that is that like they want to make something that works really well with their ecosystem of products, and so they set really high standards for stuff that works with their ecosystems of products. So even though there are options to like go outside of the iMessage ecosystem, like like Android users have like I forget what it's called, it's like a RCS message or something like that that's encrypted. It has all the like animations and like engagement stuff that you get with like iMessage. Apple could do that. They choose not to, but like, who cares? That is not Apple's problem to fix. If you don't want to use that, then if that bothers you, then switch products. There's no one stopping you from switching products. Or if it bothers you that like you don't get access to those things, you could also just switch products. Like that's always an option. Like you could switch to Apple. We have a marketplace where we're able to like have some choices. You're not forced into any of these things.
Well, Kevin, these things are so expensive. I mean, like iPhone's like $1,000, man.
And that's what they're saying. They're like, and then because they have their illegal monopoly, they're charging more for those. But look, like Apple products are just more expensive, and that's fine. Like if you want to pay a premium for your product, that is on you, because like in some ways, like they are better than some other products, right? I get it. Like I don't like them, but like, it's same way. Like some people for like Macs over PCs too. Macs are more expensive. There's some people who really like those better than PCs, and that's fine. That's a preference, and you should be allowed to pay more for a luxury product. And the company, to me, is under no obligation to like offer a lower cost product that works with everything else if they do not want it to. Why should they?
I look, I'm with you. I feel like it's this campaign strategy, right? They're going after like, was it Jimmy John's, the sub shop? They're going after high ticket prices. Like they're campaigning. They're coming up with populist campaign rhetoric where the government is going after things that create very small problems that the free market, if it was left to its own devices, would probably correct, right? That some of these like expensive ticket prices are because it's hard to get into these kind of businesses. You got to get all sorts of licenses and stuff like that. You can't just scalp tickets. There's a real issue of the government enhancing a problem and then saying, hey, you know what we're going to do? Fix the problem for you. And it's just like, it's a populist campaign strategy, I think.
All right. So yeah, I mean, as we mentioned, like there's the sandwich monopoly thing, which was always ridiculous. This is not quite as ridiculous as the sandwich monopoly, but it's not far from it. And then there's the Amazon thing as well, because remember, like they said, like Amazon had a monopoly, but the way they defined it was like a very narrow set of like online shopping products. They said they had too much of a market share of online shopping products, but to call it a monopoly is ridiculous. Again, yes, Amazon has like a big share of where online shopping takes place, but they don't by any means have monopoly. There are plenty of other options out there in the same way that you have plenty of other options if you want to go outside the Apple ecosystem. And just because they encourage you to buy other products of the same type does not mean that they are operating a legal monopoly. And this is actually part of a movement. Have you heard of the Neo Brandeisians, Tim?
No.
Is it, a name named after like Louis Brandeis, the former Supreme Court justice,
Okay.
who was big on antitrust issues, and so like the idea behind this is the way they're claiming it is essentially like, oh, we're doing this to like benefit consumers, right? Like overall, like we want to like the idea behind antitrust generally is like we have to break up companies that control too much of a market share, because that is a market failure, and if they aren't already hurting consumers, then they will be soon, right?
Sure.
And they
There's-
kind of take that and take it to but they're barely even justifying it based on a consumer benefit anymore. They're barely even justifying like the consumer side of this. They're mostly just like big company bad. Like they've kind of gotten that simplistic.
As long as the big companies aren't pharmaceutical companies filling their coffers with campaign dollars, they're very anti-big business apparently, and they're not, right? Like it's a myth. They prop themselves up. They'll probably force Apple into some regulations that will actually long-term Apple will write, Apple will benefit from, and Apple will make money off of. There's also something too, Kevin. They were talking about how Apple does not allow certain apps on its phone. Like this suit is multi-layered, right? And so they're like, Apple has this closed garden approach to you can go to the walled garden, right? That you can go to the Apple store and not get some of the super apps out there. And that is an injustice somehow. Like,
and
like,
again, to me, I'm like, oh, do you think that stinks? Then you should probably switch products. You should probably not like use an Apple product, because I think that stinks. I find that annoying,
right,
which is why I have an Android phone. It's
yeah. People look. It's the simplistic notion that you're entitled to status, right? And Apple, even according to Steve Jobs, what he wanted to do was convey status. He wanted to be a premier product. He wanted it to be ergonomic and attractive, right? So that was his goal. That's what Apple is. People who buy Apple, other than me, right, are invested at least in part with the ambiance of Apple, right? So I have an Apple. La-di-da. It's the most expensive phone on the market.
Tim, do you think you're better than us?
Yeah, no, I don't. My wife actually got me this last phone. She's just like, you keep buying junk and you keep holding on for too long. And she's like, I'm getting you a phone. And she just went in, looked for the best deal. It was already two generations behind when she bought it for me, but it was brand new.
My wife threatened to do that, and I was like, no. And I just like bought a phone like that night. I was like, no.
My wife every once. I just got to let her do it, because like I appreciated it. It was a nice thought. It was a nice gesture. She was like, your phone's ridiculous. The camera's bad. Like, what are you doing? Your screen is shot. Like I'm like, and of course I'm the guy. I'll be like, I'm taking it to a place and I'm getting it fixed. That's another issue in the lawsuit, right? That Apple products are hard to fix. And guys, this does go all the way back to the very first Apple products. There was a war between.
Tim, you're like really on the government side again at this. You keep coming back to it. Like you're a Linda Khan fan, aren't you? Like
who? I don't know.
She's the FTC chair.
Oh yeah, no, definitely not.
But no, you're like, yeah, but like, maybe they have a point. Like, they're hard to fix. I don't know. Like,
oh no. Like I again, we get into that libertarian conundrum. I may not like Apple's business plan, even though I own an Apple phone. I'm just saying that it's real, and that's what the government is campaigning on, right? This whole air of the Apple product being the best that there is. That all of the things that they're saying about Apple are true. Should it be actionable by the government, or is this just a silly campaign trick to waste our money? And
so like, let's get to the bigger point. This is about like paternalism and like the infantilization of like the American people too. Like, oh, we need government to save us from this stuff. Like, look at them like doing these business practices that like hurt people, right? We have to save them. Like, if we don't save them, they're gonna be too dumb, too trapped to do anything on their own. Like to switch products. Like again, like as if like you can't. Like, we live in an age of abundance. You can switch phones for most people relatively easily, right? Like,
relatively.
Yeah, like you're not going to switch it on a whim, but like, next time you're up for a phone, you might say, you know what, this is annoying. I don't want to like be part of like this Apple products anymore. I'm going to switch. Or, it might go the other way around too, right? You might decide to switch to Apple products, which again, I know several people who've done that, gone back and forth, and they have different things they like about different phones. And it's funny. So we have this comment from Alice on YouTube says Apple even shuts your apps off and won't let you see information they don't want you to see. What's funny is that actually like the conspiracies that I've heard from this is actually from the other direction, that the government's trying to do this stuff because they're mad at Apple for not giving them a back door into their products. Because you remember that case from a while ago?
Yeah.
Where there's a case where the government was trying to get into an iPhone, and I think it was related to like a mass shooting or something like that. Right. And they're like, okay, Apple, like give us a back door, and they're like, that doesn't exist. Like it's not a thing. It doesn't exist. Like we can't get into this phone. And the government.
To Alice's point, though, Kevin, I think on my last update, I agreed that there is a back door into my phone. That I'm pretty sure, and I was like, well, if I don't click this, I can't use my goddamn phone. So now what do I do? So I wish I had paid a little bit more attention and like opened it up, but I'm just like, all right, well, it's updated and I got to use my phone. So click.
Tim,
whatever.
that's on you, man.
But I mean, no, sure, it is. Absolutely.
No, but Apple has been, despite the government, like on both parties, the Democrats and Republicans, people like Hillary Clinton and Ted Cruz were united on this issue to say Apple should be forced to give the government access at any time for safety, right? And Apple said, nope, we're not going to do that because, and this goes back to just like kind of foundational like encryption issues, is like if we give you a backdoor, if there is a way for us to get in or for you to get in, then someone else can figure it out too, and our product is no longer secure, right? So like that's the whole thing. That there has to be a way for these products to be safe and secure, and I appreciate Apple taking the stand on this. Now there are ways you can do that with your Android phone too. It just requires more work. Right. You have to go out and like, do stuff. Everything with these phones, like Apple's like nice walled gardens and the apps work better and they're nice, but you can't do anything like custom. You can't do anything weird outside of like what Apple wants you to do. Whereas Android, you can do all sorts of weird stuff. It's just that some of it might break your phone.
Yeah, well, Kevin, look, here's the thing. If the government can protect me from Apple forcing me to take their enroll in they have an app that's like a health and fitness app that I didn't really want to enroll in, but they forced me to do it because I couldn't use the alarm on my phone unless I enrolled in the health and fitness app. So now it's like tracking how many steps I take every day. Like the government should protect me from that. And look, again, I'm joking. Like I'm just kidding. This is obnoxious. The government is using legal fare and lawfare to campaign and trade in emotional infancy. Like literally. I agree with that. That's huge.
That's true.
And the more people
Tim's secretly voting Joe Biden this November just to keep these lawsuits going. It's like, finally taking down the big corporations, taking down the capitalists.
Take down Ticketmaster, bro. I'll be so happy because I go to shows all the time. Like, nope, that's not how it works. The last show I went to was I watched Dave Smith down in I don't know, some small town at like an amphitheater where it was obviously like the town put on a big event and they had 25 people in the audience. It was a good show. Dave's pretty funny. And the other guys that he had with him were absolutely hilarious too. So that was the last show I went to. And that was in August.
Yeah. So on that note, though, we are out of time for this segment. Thanks again for joining us, folks, on A Free Solution. We're going to be back here in a few minutes. Talk to you soon.
Hey, Rich Bertellis out there. Hey, Rich. It's been a while.
What's up, Rich? Vice presidential candidate Rich Bertel.
Presidential candidate. Yes. I am Rich is one of the guys that fills me with confidence that there is a potential for a libertarian party. He's genuinely a nice guy. He's genuinely a hardworking guy. And he's genuinely a libertarian. Like he genuinely
smart fellow. We've had him on before. He knows his stuff on quite a few issues. But
we'll have him on again. Why not?
Yeah. And folks, the reason why I said a vice presidential candidate, New York State the New York State Libertarian Party has to do a bit of an odd thing. Where the petitioning period starts before the National Libertarian Party has selected its libertarian candidate. So What has to happen is that because they're going to be petitioning next month, they have to go out and collect those signatures now, and they have to have placeholder candidates on there. And then when the time comes, the placeholder candidates will presumably step down, and is it a committee on vacancies for it's a committee on vacancies, I believe, for this still, right? Like they have to fill in the new candidate, which would presumably be the presidential candidate that is selected at the national convention. So
presumably, Kevin. Presumably.
So they're not legally obligated to, I don't think.
No,
but like,
no, they're not.
Because
They're not.
Yeah, I mean, like the New York Libertarian Party, like most libertarian parties, are more or less independent entities. But yeah,
correct. Yeah,
and he says correct. The committee does the replacement. That's what I thought. I was like, it's not like Larry Sharp's the presidential stand-in, and Rich Patel is the VP stand-in, and the.
I would say Larry's done a good job of demonstrating in the past that he can and does do an incredible amount of work to get signatures. And that, guys, that's the thing I think where we lose it. There's the mechanics and the nitty-gritty. And it's like the guys that can do that deserve our respect. And if we can help them, we can help them. Like
yeah,
he does the work, man. That's for sure. And Rich will do the work. Rich got, I don't know, 70,000 signatures for Larry last time around. I mean, he did a really good job. He got, I think it was in close to 1,000, like he did really, really good. And that's working a full-time job. Yeah. It's just working a full-time job and asking people to sign pieces of paper. There's people out there that produce, they deserve our support and they deserve our help,
Yeah.
So,
oh, great.
Yeah.
And lots of folks pledging to volunteer. I'm going to be useless this petition season because I'm having heart surgery, but
Yeah. Well, that's no excuse.
I got
Kevin.
stuff going. I know, right? Like
doctors and nurses have pens. You
can exactly just, right. Like they're going to have something to sign with. I can ask them. I'm like, hey, listen, before you cut me open, doctor, just sign this for me.
Sign this for me. I mean, I was like, I sold my backhoe and I made the guy sign a petition. I'm like, I'll take your money, but you got to sign this petition. And, and it's like, and he's like, hey, you want my girlfriend to sign too? And I'm like, might as well, like we're right here, like it was pretty cool. So,
But anyway, I don't know. Maybe we should probably go into the next subject, unless you have anything else to say about the Apple lawsuit. I think we got it.
We got it. We covered it. It's like there's points that the government are making that are appealing to emotional infants, which I am one.
Yeah. Yeah, Tim's like, I don't know, maybe they have a little bit of a point. Just a little bit of government punishment. Just
just punish them a little bit, because Steve Jobs headlined a Behind the Bastard show, But
yeah.
no,
well, I did listen to that one. That was a pretty good one.
That was he gets off on tangents sometimes, and I'm just like, all right, I give up on this one, And I was having my kid listen to him because I think it's fun to help them step outside of, just seeing their dad as a libertarian, former conservative, like just seeing that. But I have other interests, and certainly the show Behind the Bastards is interesting. And my kid and I were listening to it one day, and we were just like, it's like he's hitting on the girl that he's co-hosting with, and it was just really bad. It was just like, it was really bad. One of the few shows I would just say it was really bad. I can't even remember who it was about. That's how bad it was.
Oof.
Yeah.
All right. Well. So we'll jump into the next segment in a minute, and I guess we'll talk about the
excuse me,
the bridge thing.
We might better, terrorism.
That's your theory, terrorism, Jones Act.
That's a theory.
Yeah, we can go into to a bunch of those.
Sure.
All right, so we'll go back in about 15 seconds. 4, 3. Welcome back to A Free Solution. I'm Kevin Wilson, your host today, joined by Tim, the Freedom Variant O'Connor.
I'm here, Kevin, and I think everybody is talking about this situation in Baltimore, where the Francis Scott Key Bridge was demolished by a foreign flag commercial cargo ship. It
Yeah.
was demolished, bro.
Yeah, no, it's wild. And I feel bad for all the folks who were on the bridge, and like awful situation for them. But like it's crazy. Like, because this is an area that, like, it does get like boat traffic. Like, it's not an unusual thing. Baltimore has a harbor, has boats going in and out and everything, ships going in and out, and this bridge was just not meant for a direct hit from a ship of that size, and full on collapse in big sections of the bridge.
Yeah, I mean, it's an absolute disaster. I think we've got a lot of issues to touch upon about a bridge collapse of this nature, of an infrastructure collapse of this nature. Certainly, one of the things, and I'm gonna love like the reeling back, but certainly like terrorism has got to be on the slate, right? Like, we've got to be thinking, was this a terrorist act, or was it just an absolute horrible mistake or malfunction by a ship called the Dali out of Singapore? What do you think,
Yeah.
Kevin? Am I crazy to wonder if it's terrorism?
I know people wondered that. Like, it doesn't really seem like it was. It kind of just seems like an accident, which stinks. Like,
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
awful, but like, these things do happen.
sure.
I know, because like people want some of the blame, though, right? Like people have like thrown out like, oh, it's terrorism, it's we don't spend enough on infrastructure, it's immigrants, it's the Jones Act, like just all sorts of stuff. People are like looking for something to blame, and sometimes, again, like for the infrastructure folks, oh, it's just we're not spending enough on infrastructure, we didn't repair this bridge enough. I'm like, I don't know, what do you expect? Like, a giant container ship like that is millions of tons, like, plowed right into the thing. Like, what do you expect to
Yeah.
happen? Right? Like,
Yeah, no, I'm with you there.
it's not
Like,
meant for that.
there is no way a bridge could withstand that. So I'm like, doesn't there have to be some computerized safety things? Doesn't there have to be some like here, I'll go down the wormhole for you, Kevin. All right.
Yeah.
That ship lost power at exactly the right moment for it to not be able to finish its turn, where all of its systems would have got thrown into reverse by all of the safety stuff available on the ship, all the computerized guidance that it has, right? What it was an amazing coincidence for sure.
Yeah, I mean, it's a thing that happens, but like, it's accidents do happen, though, right? Like, again, to me, like, not everything is a conspiracy. Sometimes, like, just stuff goes wrong.
Sure.
And stuff goes wrong way less than it used to. Like, I think we take for granted how good computer systems like that are,
Sure.
and
Yeah.
how much of that is automated in, shipping, in our airlines, in train systems,
Sure.
etc. But it's not infallible. Stuff
It-
can still go wrong.
Yeah. Look, it stuff can and will go wrong, right? Disasters will happen. I am, as much as I enjoy traveling down this conspiracy wormhole, and now I'm actually not leaning one way or the other. I do think it would be a unique attack on American systems, like,
Right.
and certainly I think that it's probably doable, right? That a hacker at the right time, at the right moment, or someone on the ship could have
It could be, like, and
Yeah.
if ends up being the case, then okay, I was wrong. And I know we got some conspiracies out there, right? Al says the
Yeah.
ship didn't take it out. Watch the video of the other parts of the bridge going down. I know people have already made the ships don't melt steel beams.
Yeah, I'm telling you right now, I watched all of those videos
I just
over
made
and over.
the terrible joke, and
Yeah. So
it's
look, I
still looks
watched
too much like 9/11 to me. Yeah.
I watched look, Kevin, I watched those videos over and over and over again. And the flashes of light happened after the bridge was already off of its moorings, right? So I don't think do my question would be, I've driven down through the port of Delaware, down through the port of Baltimore. I've seen the size of those ships I'm telling you that the weight they're carrying, we saw like about 7 years ago, there was in New York City or one of the ferries, the Staten Island ferry, had a disaster where its motors didn't shut off, and
Yeah.
I think it killed like 50 people. Like, I don't think
Right.
people understand, even on water, what the power of that kind of weight and that kind of momentum can do. So I saw the flashes.
Yeah.
Being experienced with electric, there's high voltage lines running across that bridge, period. Okay. Probably
Mhm.
70,000 volt lines. Okay. With 3 phases. Those lines aren't necessarily all going to break at once. They're going to flash in 3 or 4 different spots. There's going to be transformers hold juice for a little while. There's going to be some popping. So I do say, like, they were massive flashes. Like, they look small in comparison to the bridge, but they were absolutely massive. So I'm going with, if that part isn't terrorism, like it wasn't blown up, if someone coerced that ship into driving into that pier, that could be terrorism, right? Like, absolutely believe there is a possibility that it's terrorism. Now, when the government comes out and says it's not terrorism, I'm automatically like,
You're
no,
assuming, like,
yeah, no,
oh,
it's
yeah.
definitely terrorism. Like, I'm with you. It's there. These guys are lying. They lie all the time. It's definitely terrorism. So I'm not actually saying it's definitely terrorism. I'm
Done.
saying certainly possible. Certainly not even saying it's probable, but it certainly is possible.
Yeah, it's possible. But can we talk about like the worst take from it, which is, well, not the worst take, but like a pretty bad take from it. I'm gonna read Thomas Massey's tweet.
Yeah, we should talk about that.
So Thomas Massey says, my district has 250 miles of the Ohio River with 3 dams, city water intakes, and a dozen bridges. The Jones Act requires shipping on inland waterways to be conducted with vessels built, registered, and crewed in the United States. I support the Jones Act, even if it's quote unquote protectionist.
I will say that as much as I love Thomas Massey, there's moments in time where he's very much a political animal. And
he's Republican. Ah, shoot, I almost forgot.
Yeah. No, there's very much, like, he was Ron DeSanctimonious' guy. Like, and I don't fault him for that. Thomas Massey wants a better system of governments. I liken him to Justin Amash. I liken him to Rand Paul, right? Like, these guys do their best to be incredibly consistent, but occasionally they've got to say things that are politically expedient, and maybe that's not even fair. Maybe he really believes that the Jones Act has a positive impact on the safety of shipping. Like, maybe he really believes that.
Yeah. So, well, like, the funny thing is, right, it actually had a like an American like pilot, right? Like, so it was because what happens with a lot of these as these like ships are going into like kind of complex harbors like this, is that they'll have like an on-site pilot who knows the channel best, that knows the bay best, like, navigate in.
Sure.
So that's something that'll happen. That's what happened here. So even though it was a foreign flag ship, like, it wouldn't have made any difference in this case if it was an American built, an American flag ship. There's again, they're allowed to the Jones Act doesn't even prevent foreign flag ships from going into American harbors. All the Jones Act does is say that if something is going from one American port to another American port, that it has to be an American flagged, an American built ship with an American crew.
Correct.
That's all it does. So it just hurts ourselves. That's all it's doing. Like, we still have foreign ships coming into our harbors because, like, of course we do. Like, that's how a lot of trade works.
No way around.
And we make it almost impossible to build our own ships anyway. And like, it has nothing to do with the Jones Act. And like, Thomas Massey's getting roasted in the replies.
Well, because he had libertarians look to him as right now the lone guy in the House of Representatives, besides based like Mike Lee, who already goes off the rails in a very conservative fashion, where he gets a little too, for libertarian liking, I'd say he gets a little too pro-religious. I think that's where he divorces himself from libertarians. But Thomas Massey is like a libertarian hero. He's like the one guy that we could count on to be consistent. And there was a time when I was mad at him for not sticking it to Adam Schiff, because I hate Adam Schiff. And I think Adam Schiff is a bad dude. Yeah, no, I think he's a bad dude. And I think we should do whatever we can to get rid of him. I think he's that bad. But Thomas Massey was right. Like there was he talked about the Constitution. He
Yeah.
talked about the, hey, if we do this to him, we can do this to anybody. And those things are things that get lost in the emotional infancy of our society right now. Like that's something that's not getting better, Kevin. We're not getting more emotionally mature. That's for sure.
No.
A lot of things are getting better. But there
But
is a
not that.
comment out there that I do. If we've covered most everything, Real Mav
Okay.
1 hits a supply chain issue comment. And if we could put that up on the screen, Kevin, I think that
Oh yeah, you can't do that right now.
yeah,
I
yeah,
control the comments.
you do,
Uh,
man. So look, this could be because of, especially
Well,
because of the
let's
way
read
we
the comment because
Oh,
the
yeah,
folks
I
in
know.
WYSL can't see it.
Well, they should join the show. But all right, so Real Mav 1 asked, more supply chain issues, question mark. A new bird flu with Fauci spreading from birds to mammals to humans, really? Okay. I thought he was talking mostly about the boat. Let me stick with the boat, okay? This disrupting I-95, disrupting the port of Baltimore and access to the port of Baltimore could be a serious supply chain smash, okay? Like we're already teetering on problems with inflation that allegedly have been dialed back, but I still think that the government is miscalculating the real economics of inflation. So now, Kevin, who are we going to blame? Is it going to be big corporations when the supply chain literally gets shocked on a massive scale? Like the Port of Baltimore, billions of dollars of stuff come in and out of there all the time. This
It's
is
corporate
huge.
greed, always.
Yeah,
always
that's what
corporate greed.
that's what I
Yeah.
went with on my Twitter. It's
Yeah.
like, it's corporate greed, bro. Like,
Yeah, always.
you know,
Every single time, no matter
this
what.
time for sure. I can smell it already. Dollar General toilet paper is going to be doubled in price by tomorrow because you can't ship that any other way than on container ships. That's for sure.
I mean, if only there's a way to get supplies from, say, areas of the South to New England quickly and efficiently without having to use I-95 and with available ships.
There isn't. It's impossible. Sorry.
Yeah,
No, look.
Rich Patel, I'm gonna read the comment. Rich Patel says, "Massey blew it on this. At least get rid of the U.S. built requirement." Yeah, like there are things we can improve the Jones Act at least. Like just let ships be built in South Korea and have them be like American flagged and American crewed. That would be an improvement at least. Would
Yeah,
be great, but like.
Yeah, even American owned. You could say the requirement is for them to be American owned, but they can be built anywhere in the world. And when I did that show, when Rich and I did a show with Colin Grabo of the Cato Institute, he was very clear that we're talking on the order of foreign built ships, these container barges. I think they cost like something like 30% of what it costs to build one in America. 30%. And we're talking things that cost millions and millions of dollars. That's a huge, huge, huge savings. Huge. But of course, we don't have any American ones driving into bridges. So there you go.
So, I mean, we barely have any American ones at all. Which, again, ironically, the whole point of the Jones Act was to protect the American shipbuilding industry, and it may have ended up like hurting it in some ways.
Well, it did hurt it in some ways, and it is a tool to line, people that keep the Jones Act in place, right? The Murkowski of Alaska, right? Is that the one? Do I have the name right?
Oh yeah, Murkowski. Yeah, I think because she supported it weirdly, even though like the Alaskans, like it hurts them like badly.
Yeah, but because she gets donations from shipping companies, right? Like American shipping company. Trump was on the verge of suspending or doing away or ameliorating some aspects of the Jones Act. She went in, shook them down. This is a story from Colin Grabo. This isn't necessarily my story, right? Like, but went in, had some words, and he forgot all about it. Just went right off of his radar, And so I think that's got to be political expediency, which means political donations. Period. I'm just saying, it's got to be.
And this other one here from Rich, and then we got to go to break. Says the U.S. has no Jones Act light natural gas vessels, so we can't ship LNG port to port. Yeah, it's a big problem. Again, like there's places in New England would benefit from this, especially, and we're hurting ourselves with this stuff. They can living more expensive in New England, in the South, and especially in places like Alaska and Hawaii
Yeah, it
and
kills
Puerto
you in
Rico.
Alaska and Hawaii. Yeah, it kills
Yeah.
you. Yeah.
All right. But on that note, we do have to head to break. Thanks again for joining us here on A Free Solution. We're going to be back in just a few minutes. Talk to you soon.
I mean, like the Jones Act has problems when every single disaster, they're like, you know what we should do? Suspend the Jones Act for the next 6 months so that we can get stuff to Hawaii, or we can get stuff to Alaska, or we can
Yeah.
get stuff to Puerto Rico.
Yeah,
it's
because
like,
that's what happens during hurricanes. Like, we'll suspend the Jones Act so like ships can actually take relief supplies from Florida to Puerto Rico.
yeah,
Right? Like,
yeah, no, absolutely, man. I mean, look, and look, I think that supply shock inflation is, especially with the tenuous grasp on inflation statistics that we have right now. I think we're in for a little bit of a world of hurt here. Like, this is going to hurt, and they're not going to be able to blame and diffuse the blame. It is a supply shock inflationary event, and it's going to exacerbate the lies that they're telling about inflation right now. It's going to. I think it's going to be tough, right?
I mean, like it
survive?
might actually impact inflation because I like supply shock like as a factor in inflation is a thing, right? Like
Sure.
because I think it was legitimately a thing during COVID where like you'd have some stuff where it's like stuff just not being made, right? Like factories
Correct.
just like shut down. So okay, like goods aren't getting places, and you have to have more money chasing fewer goods.
Yeah.
Like, that's a factor in it, right? Like I know like it's popular for libertarians to say it's like just a monetary issue, but it's not like just a monetary issue because sometimes things happen to the supply chain either through government action. There's still plenty of blame to happen for the government, to be clear.
Yeah.
But things happen to the supply of goods. There's fewer goods, and now people are using their scarce resources to like get a hold of those like few things that are available.
Well, look, even in a hurricane, right, where we lose a 2 weeks worth of shipping, right? Like, let's say we have major hurricane, major problem. This is going to be multiple times that. This is going to take months to get the passageway up open to the port. Like this is massive. This is a lot of shipping is going to have to get rerouted. It's not going to be able to get unloaded as fast because all of a sudden now we're going to have ships backing up out in the ocean, waiting to be pulled in to get unloaded. It's going to be, I mean, I'm telling you, this one is going to be interesting. I think it's going to play out pretty rough.
Yeah, I mean, like people figure stuff out, right? Like there'll be other routes, there'll be other ways of like going around.
I'm ready to price gouge, brother. Don't worry.
You're ready to price gouge.
Yeah, I'm ready to price gouge. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah, Tim, there ought to be a law.
There will be.
No, definitely will be. It's oh no, we can't raise the price of goods even though like nothing's available now. Like that would be taking advantage of this situation. Price gouging.
Yeah, I'm ready.
No, you have to sell your last 30 pack of water at like the same price, no matter how much people want it. Sorry.
Do you though? Like I've always hated the price gouging arguments. It's always an emotional infantilism kind of argument. And so, okay, whatever. We'll see it. It's going to be Joe Biden is going to protect us from price gougers, Yeah. Okay. All right.
We just dictate that. Then everyone will be able to buy everything cheaply and there won't be hurt.
Yeah. And there won't be any of it, whatever it is, whatever that it is. There won't be any. So good. Congratulations.
Suddenly it's gone because no one can get more stuff in. That's how it goes.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Price gouging, it's like this is one of those like you libertarians and monsters one, but price gouging helps goods get to the right place, right? Like it's you see what things are really worth.
Sure.
And it stinks, but like that's sometimes markets can help prioritize things.
I think that's the thing, right? It is, hey, if they need roofs in Florida and people who come from Texas to provide roofs in Florida, I'm going to pay a premium. If I got the money, I'm getting the guy there. Now, if I don't have the money, having that guy there is still going to help me because at least goods and services will return to normal that much faster in my home area. Once the prices, once things get taken care of, it corrects faster. Yeah, it creates. Yeah, it's an
government keeps the market disruption going longer through their intervention.
Always, man. There's no other way around it. That's all. They distort markets constantly. It's like their job. They distort markets with a vengeance. That's all they do.
Yeah.
Housing, everything. It's crazy. Crazy.
Steve Becker on Facebook says better living through protectionism.
God bless you, Steve. You're right. Let's do it. I've been going sideways, Steve. I don't know if you've been paying attention to the show, but I'm finding all sorts of things where the government has got it right. It started with that parking garage in Oneonta. They got it right. You know what I mean? And it's just like it's been downhill for me ever since. Just kidding. I still hate the government, guys. Don't worry. It's gonna be fine.
Yeah. All right. So you have a whole slew of stuff that you want to talk about. And I'm gonna enjoy the ride. I don't know where this is going, folks. So those of you listening during the break, Tim gave me a list of items, and I'm like, oh, a lot of those sound like there's like
crazy
stuff I haven't heard of, conspiracy theories. Okay, yeah, let's go. Let's I'm gonna jump in. I'm gonna react to this stuff.
Do it. Let's go.
Coming in cold on a few of these things.
Yeah.
But we'll go back in 10 seconds and get this rolling.
All right. So are we back, Kevin?
No.
Are we on there?
3, 2. Welcome back to A Free Solution. I'm Kevin Wilson today, joined by Tim, the Freedom Variant O'Connor.
Kevin, I'm here, man. And it's going to be like a kind of a rapid fire kind of segment, but I've got like little blurbs and little things bounce up as my day travels through, and I'm surfing social media or listening to a podcast. I got a couple things for you, man.
And it was like WYSL audience. I have no idea like exactly what he's gonna say. He gave me a list of stuff, and I was like, I have no idea what any of this is. So,
all right,
Tim's gonna educate me. I'm gonna be educated while you're educated about this stuff. So let's go.
Google Gemini, Kevin, has gone wildly woke. All right, so it went so woke. All right. That the founding fathers had to be like non-white guys, even though we know they were white guys. Look, it went so far. Google Gemini went so far as to portray Nazis as blacks and like again non-white guys, and it's like
I did see the people of color Nazis.
The people of color Nazis. It's
like, hey, I did see that because they like people were putting these prompts like, hey, can you generate me like images of like some Nazis? They gave like racially diverse Nazis and like,
so
like people in like German World War II uniforms is like, oh, it's a black person, an Asian person, and like no white people.
American Indian, you know.
Yeah, it's like they're. Nope, I think you got that one wrong.
Yeah,
you went too hard on trying to make them. They over like because there's a thing in like when the first AI image generation stuff came out with like, oh, like they're kind of biased towards like white people. If you ask for a man in a business casual shirt, like it will give you a white man.
Right.
And so people saw that and like, oh, like I guess that's not always correct. We shouldn't like have it generate that image every time. And then they overcorrected like aggressively in a way that was really funny.
Well, for its part, Google said, we apologize. This is a mistake. We inputted some learning software that controlled image uptake, and we're not going to re-release Gemini until we get this much better. Look, I don't know if you know, but last week, Kevin, they passed.
Tim passed this.
Yeah, they passed the budget. And it's like $1.2 trillion worth of spending. But on the heels of that, the red flag operation system was born. Okay. Like, I don't know what to say about it other than it literally terrifies me as if the ATF and the FBI and the Department of Homeland Security don't have enough money, don't have enough manpower. They have to create an entirely new system to SWAT your neighbors.
The National Extreme Risk Protection Order Resource Center, right?
Yeah, that one.
And that's the one, right? So same thing like New York has, where in theory, right, like this is how it's supposed to work, is that like if someone is has not even just been accused, but like convicted of like violent crimes, they should show up in like the NICS system in theory, right? But this kind of goes beyond that, right? This is a way of saying like someone who might have some other issues that fall outside the traditional scope of that system that as these things come up, someone should have their guns taken away. This is nationalizing that process, right?
Yeah.
Which, yeah, I have some mixed feelings on that for sure.
Sure.
Like, I think we talked about it before. Like, in theory, like, some of this sounds like fine, right? Some of it sounds fine. Like, oh, we don't want someone who's like, if you have someone who's going online and talking about how they're going to go shoot up an elementary school, like, yeah, like there probably should be some mechanism for like trying to stop that person. I get it. I get why people want that thing.
Yeah.
But
I
it can,
I get it.
yeah,
And but I just see this ever increasing centralization of power where for example, that Parkland shooter in Florida, there were several warnings to the FBI that were not followed up on. And shouldn't we fix the FBI instead of coming up with a whole new department? Like, I think that's what I'm seeing here. I'm very uncomfortable with it. It seems like, again, just more centralization of power, getting us closer to tyranny every single day. Now,
right.
I know that that's occasionally for pragmatic libertarians and people who just want a more libertarian society. I feel like I want to build a bridge to them and say I understand where you're coming from. Like I get it, but
Yeah,
still, shouldn't we fix the agencies that we have? Shouldn't we make them more effective? Like,
we
shouldn't
should
the
do that.
FBI deal with like real threats? And do we need another agency to do that? And
Right. Well, like, so like the purpose of this, like, again, if I'm like trying to steel man this, the purpose of this is like we want to have a central place across states where if someone is acting in a way where they shouldn't have a firearm, where they're acting in a dangerous, irrational, or illegal way, that if that happens in Florida or New York, that information shouldn't be isolated to those states if that person is now located in Minnesota, right? Like out in um wherever. And that's the best case argument. But the worst case argument
right,
is that people end up in the system because they ask for help. They say, I'm having a mental health crisis, I'm having suicidal thoughts, and I'm going to seek help for this. And because of that, they end up, getting caught up in this system and having their firearms taken away permanently. And the thought of that happening prevents people from going to seek the help that they need, right? Like, so that's my argument against the New York State Extreme Risk Protection Order. In theory, it should work well, but there's that gray area where you end up taking a means of self-defense away from someone who is just trying to get help. And then,
cor- yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
And then either
yeah.
actually taking it away or getting them to not go and seek that help because they're worried about that right of self-defense being taken away.
Yeah, and once again, it's like using our tax dollars to campaign to emotional infants, all right? Like, who are living in fear of everything and they want a big government to save them from everything, even though they will create, laws that will eventually lock their kids or them in cages down the road. Like, that's the problem I see with all of these things. It's a real issue, and I want people to stop being so afraid of each other. Like, I don't know. I had a neighbor that liked Biden. I had a neighbor that loved Trump. They hated each other for a while, right? But they
Yeah.
got over it. They worked it out. And I want to say, because I was the guy in the middle going, I think you're both crazy. I think I helped them both out, right? Like, they got to where they were fighting over their property line. They were fighting over a guy blowing leaves one way or the other. And it was all based on the fact that they had different views on politics that exacerbated itself into minor things, exacerbated into major things. And so luckily for them and for all of us, that they've all mellowed out. They're getting along a lot better. One thing I want to talk about on the show, FDA is being framed as. I'll give you a little benefit here. Like, FDA lost its war on ivermectin. There were some
Being
rulings.
framed as
Yeah,
that's just beautiful passive voice, Tim.
yeah. See, I am of course on the side of the notion that ivermectin is a very safe, non-controversial drug that perhaps benefits people with COVID symptoms, may help ameliorate the symptoms, may help stop the cytokine storm. I don't think it's been adequately studied. The major studies that it's been part of where people had unlimited access to ivermectin, they had great outcomes with their overall COVID performance as compared to New York City, let's say. All right. So FDA went after ivermectin hard. They did a lot of things like don't take horse paste, you stupid idiot, and things of that nature. So the ivermectin makers sued the FDA. The FDA lost in court and has to take down all of its negative, like you're not a farm animal, don't take ivermectin type commentary. Now,
Right, because ivermectin does have legitimate prescribed medical uses outside of COVID, which is
sure,
more experimental.
sure,
That's
I agree with you. That's
yeah,
that's fine. Yeah, I'm like, would I take ivermectin? Sure. Would I go prepper and go to the store and buy horse paste and be like, all right, now I've got ivermectin? Maybe. Honestly,
yeah.
like I don't think it's that dangerous of a drug that
Tim's
I
got a
have to
whole
worry about
basement
that.
full of ivermectin that he's trying to push right now. He's like, "What?
Yeah.
I bought all this stuff. What do I do with it now?"
I'm gonna gouge. I'm gonna gouge the ivermectin. No, I don't even have a basement, Kevin. I hate to tell you. So like if I have a bunch of ivermectin, it's not in the basement.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that makes sense, right? Like the producers
Yeah.
of this thing say, like, don't disparage this drug that has some like good uses.
It's won a
And
Nobel
and
Prize, it's
yeah,
a seriously and the issue is that the human being tolerates it well regardless. Like you could take it if you had COVID, it actually isn't going to hurt you. It's not like perhaps taking monoclonal antibodies, right? It's not as dangerous, not as experimental as that. The human body tolerates it incredibly well.
right.
So
Yeah.
there's
Well, and you and I talked about like I think the best theory on like ivermectin helping people is that uh when they did studies of this in like India and South America, what seems to have happened is that like the parasites that are uh destroyed by ivermectin also
sure.
exacerbated COVID symptoms. So like in a lot of places, like it really did help. Like
Absolutely.
it's
Yeah.
it's it's a little bit murkier in the United States whether or not like it helped, but like in those places, like, oh hey, it turns out like getting rid of all these other health conditions like improved like health outcomes when people got COVID too. That's which isn't
Yeah.
all that shocking, right? Like
Right. No, for whatever reason, it could work. And there, what to me is that it is inexcusable in a way, is that I don't feel it has ever been studied adequately in the United States. Like, I think it's safe enough that we could just randomize any test with it to see if it actually does benefit COVID. Now, COVID has kind of mutated out of the mainstream kind of nervousness of a disease. I think that that's a good thing. Um, so I don't know that now will we ever get the answers about ivermectin that we wanted? You know what I mean?
yeah,
Or didn't want?
maybe not. Or
Yeah,
didn't want. Yeah.
yeah,
Ooh,
or didn't want? Like uh,
ominous.
yeah, I'm a big fan of like, hey, the ivermectin is fish food tetracycline. All right, I'm not going to do that, but ivermectin, horse paste. I mean, sure,
Not gonna inject yourself with bleach,
No,
as our
no.
commander in chief recommended, but
I doubt it. I don't think that's what he said, but I get it. I get it.
I remember, Tim, that is what the mainstream media told me. CNN told me that our president told us to inject bleach, and that's
Which is look, he apologized for saying whatever he said, but I don't think those were his exact words. Like I want to be clear about that. Like
no, like basically it's just like, oh, like they have cool techniques now that can disinfect your blood, like basically
right.
like bleach your blood, right? And like that's what he said, but he was
Sure.
talking about like an experimental thing where like they would basically put like UV lights in
Yeah.
like blood vessels that would try to like be enough to kill viruses, but not like that
Look,
was the thing.
he spent too much time on TV.
He was just
Hormone.
excited about new
Yeah.
technology. Like
Yeah.
like I'm not even mad about that one. Like he was just like, oh, like here's this like cool new thing that someone told me about that might be a solution to COVID, and like at a time when everyone was looking for something.
Yeah.
And like he just got excited about the technology, talked about it, and then like because the mainstream media can like never give Trump the benefit of the doubt in any situation,
Oh, that's
like
right.
they just
Right.
tore him up for it.
They did. And they're still trying to. And now they're people are going back and saying that he said specifically inject yourself with bleach. And guys like Eric Swalwell, like one of the ugliest men in the world, promising to protect people from themselves so that he gets more power. Like, it's just, he's gross. Like, I hate that guy. Sorry. Eric Swalwell is, besides threatening the American people with military might constantly or nearly constantly, there's so much wrong with that guy. He's going to be the next Adam Schiff, guys. You watch. He's going to, he's going to keep at this. Kevin, you know what we didn't talk about, and I don't know how time is looking.
We got like a minute left.
All right, so look, did we talk about the absolute failure of New York State's legalizing
the cannabis program? No,
marijuana?
We did not talk about the fact that 97% of New York's cannabis farmers are underwater right now, not profitable, and it is New York State's fault. And we don't have enough time to talk about it. Which is
oh my God, we got to talk about it in the after show. But WSL, we hate the government. They failed on cannabis legalization. It was an opportunity to help turn arable land into profitable land, and they blew it. And they're going to continue to blow it.
Yep, it's all we're getting next is farmers who can't make it, big corporations who can, and bailouts.
That's it. Bail them out, baby. Bail them out.
It is. You thought we are going to make money off of this with taxes? You were wrong. It's New York State. What do you expect? Come on.
It's going to be the opposite for you.
All right. So we'll talk about that in the after show. So sorry, WYSL audience. Go find our podcast if you want to hear how that conversation goes. Thanks again for joining us here on A Free Solution. Have a great night, folks. Take care. Man, stupid New York State.
My God. They have weaponized their stupidity. Okay. They have literally weaponized their stupidity. They have approximately 80 licenses have actually been granted. They were going around and like kicking people's doors in who were skirting the law, but wanted to have a legit cannabis shop. They shut all of them down, they shut all of them down.
For a while, like there's no license. There are no licenses being distributed in the whole Finger Lakes region, my region. They did allow like a temporary program that ended to allow farmers to sell directly to consumers. So there was one legal shop in over on East Ave by the Wegmans in the Rochester area, which I never made it over to because I don't really smoke or consume at all.
Yeah.
Just never really my thing. But
I'm sorry.
Well, I was just gonna say, like, it's just it's ridiculous that like they made it so difficult for farmers to be able to survive in this situation by limiting licenses, by making it difficult to get licenses, by putting all these like equity requirements in that like even if I say like I talked about like maybe they're well-meaning, maybe they're trying to correct what they saw as the systematic racial injustice of the drug war. Like that's like if I'm steel manning it, that's what they're trying to do.
Right.
But then they ended up making this system that was convoluted and difficult and ended up opening up the state to lawsuits, which then shut down the program, which means that everyone who invested sometimes hundreds of thousands of dollars in this, and you can read the story. I posted the WXXI news story in the comments. So if you're online, I'll post it in the description. Like this guy posted put up like $400,000 of his own money, like getting loans and everything too, of course. And now like he can't legally sell his product, and because of federal like laws, he can't sell it across state lines either. It's not like, oh well, I guess I'll just see if I can ship it out to Colorado. Nope, not possible. That's that you can't send it outside New York State without running afoul federal law.
Yeah. So look, they even went so far as to, in my area, Kevin, all right, this guy who had been growing weed legally, okay, prior to New York State legalizing weed, okay, he had a USDA license. He didn't file for the correct New York licenses. Somebody accused him of selling it off of his property directly to a consumer. They confiscated like, I don't know, I think it was like 3,000 pounds of his end of the season product, which was worth $45,000 in revenue, if I remember the story correctly. I got to check with him and see how he made out, because it was a terrific and terrible abuse. He did some sort of partnership with a company that was getting licenses, who met the quota, the goals, right? So this guy was getting licenses. This guy didn't come up with money. This guy didn't follow through on the paperwork for the license. My friend had his product seized by the New York State Police. Like, with no, like, they're not going to give it back to him. They're not going to give him money. They're either going to burn it or smoke it, right? So
Yeah.
it's such a travesty, such an injustice. And look, guys, when a farmer wastes a year on growing a crop and doesn't get what he anticipates in revenue based on the promises that the government made, we cannot understate nor can we overstate how absolutely awful that is. That's a year of someone's life down the tubes, include whatever money goes into that as well. It's ridiculous. It's bad. We've got to be able to do better, and we're never going to be able to do better because we have a clown show in this state running the. They have weaponized their stupidity when it comes to stuff like this, and that's a reality. Like, you and I talk about whether it's incompetence or maliciousness, it doesn't matter. It's that incompetent. That's how bad it is.
Yeah, no, it's I do agree with you on that part. Like,
Sorry,
it's
man.
it's you're right though. It's like it's incompetence that's indistinguishable from malice, and like whether or not the intent is there, the harm is still there, right?
Correct.
And like I have to throw a bit of blame at the state senator from my area. He's not my state senator, but Jeremy Cooney, who's heading up the Senate's cannabis subcommittee. He's like, oh, he's putting the blame on the legal injunctions, so people suing and a booming black market. But why did the legal injunctions happen? Because you structured the law that way to open yourself up to lawsuits. Why is the black market still booming? Because you built a system that's impossible for people to navigate legally. Right. And so like the black market still gets to thrive because you create a system where it's expensive, if not impossible, and in some cases literally impossible, to open up a legal cannabis shop and to like grow and sell your product legally. So yeah, the black market that was always there is still thriving. And then now you have to continue to use law enforcement resources to go after the people who are like selling marijuana. Like we have escalated the war on drugs in New York State because we talked about that. Remember, like they increased the penalties for selling marijuana, ironically.
Well, it's going to be a tax evasion thing too, right? Like they're gonna enter in the black market. They're gonna take cash or trade, through Venmo or something like that. Like it's going to be bad. Excuse me for 1 second. I have some numbers from that article that you posted, right?
Yeah.
So for an 1/8 ounce of cannabis flower, which typically retails in the $40 to $50 range at a dispensary, Interleaca estimated she profits about $2. All right. But hang on. That's not even so. Estimates from the CFA state that for every $100 worth of cannabis concentrate sold at market, 37 goes to the dispensary, 21 goes to state taxes, and $19 goes to the processor and distributor. The remaining $4 is the farmer's share. So $10,000 worth of product, Kevin, we're talking they make $400. Okay.
Yeah.
This is insane. That is the black market trumps that by 1,000. Like there's no way to get to profit for the guy growing this unless you're a massive corporation growing it someplace else and figuring out a way to bring it here for nothing. Like that's a reality. It is not what they promised. They probably knew it going in, or they're so stupid it's embarrassing. Like, which is it though?
Yeah.
Which is it?
No, it's you're right. Like they should have known better, because like we've seen models like this fail already. We've seen how like other legalization schemes, like what California did after their post-medical marijuana system, like how it ended up struggling. They saw how Colorado struggled initially and ended up having to make some reforms to like make the system work a little bit better, to make a functioning legal market. Like there are ways of being able to do this, and New York State, which came in promising like oh, we're going to make so much revenue off of this. This is going to be great. This is going to be a cash cow for us. Like, but they couldn't get out of their own way.
Correct. It's embarrassing. Like the arguments about, hey, we're going to increase tax revenue as a libertarian were distinctly unappealing to me. But like, okay, I get that people are going to buy into that, but this is not going to increase anything for anybody, and everybody's getting hurt. It's going to be a mess. Like, look, guys, I know people that can teach you how to like distill your cannabis products without any kind of problem. You can make your own cannabis treats. I think one area where like they made it more legal to grow your own at home, right? So now you can grow up to 6 plants and not get busted. If you tend those plants correctly, you can make a lot of good stuff. And guys, I like Kevin, I don't do a lot of marijuana. Like it doesn't work for me. As you guys can probably see, I get pretty hyper. Marijuana has a way of making me paranoid and crazy, so I kind of stay away from it. I shy away from it. Like, that's why I stick with beer. Beer generally turns me down a notch, So, but yeah, it's not that hard to do, and it's a shame when we were promised a boon and what we got is a boondoggle. Like, but Kevin, we saw it, right? We saw it. We did. We were out in front saying, hey, we liberals, you've got this idea right? Like, this is a product that should be freely accessible. It's not dangerous. It shouldn't be on Schedule 1. Liberals, you have this right, but you need to listen to people with common sense because you're going to screw this up. And they didn't. And look, WSL audience, maybe a proportion of them are like, hey, you know what shouldn't be legal? Marijuana. Okay, I get it. But you're wrong. Okay, you're wrong. You know what I mean? Like, I get you, but you're wrong.
Yeah. Nope. So, but we knew, like, again, progressives can get out of their own way on this stuff. Like, because they can't get out of their own way and say, well, we need to make sure this is safe and equitable and that we can raise revenue off of it. And then we're going to use that for our causes. And like, they attach so many conditions to stuff. Like, this is, it's a fundamental problem with like progressives. As much as like I dislike like basically everything they do, like they have a fundamental problem of like they can't accomplish anything because like they've gotten themselves like attaching so many different strings of stuff that like they're incapable of allowing weed to be legal. They're incapable of like building stuff like it's a big problem at progressive circles that I'm glad they're finally talking about. Like, oh, hey, like we literally can't build like rail anywhere because it's so expensive. Like, it's just because of all the environmental restrictions, the environmental review, the union stuff, the cost stuff, the fair wage stuff, like all these things pile on where you're unable to accomplish stuff. The same thing with like the CHIPS Act. I thought the CHIPS Act was stupid. I didn't think we didn't need to subsidize the manufacture of microchips, but they added so many things to it: the DEI requirements, the environmental review requirements, the wage requirements. All this stuff came together, and we haven't built anything. We've managed to spend millions and millions and perhaps billions of dollars on this stuff without actually accomplishing anything.
Right. And the people that take advantage of that are the biggest psychopath narcissists in the business. They're like, all right, we'll come to New York for a short period of time, take all of their free money, put that into our bottom line, and tell our shareholders we made money, and then yank everything right the F back out. They're gone. Right. Like,
so it's just like all compliance and no like accomplishment.
Yeah.
And actually, like one of the biggest examples of this, and I don't know if you saw this, like people were roasting this in my circles on Twitter, but the California high-speed rail, where they're bragging about how many jobs they created.
I didn't see it, but when they brag about how many jobs they created, accomplished nothing.
This is like literally have not built a single thing. They have secured like a tiny fraction of land to be able to build, like in the easiest part of like the emptiest, like easiest part to build in. Like they've secured the land, but haven't built anything for high-speed rail. And they're like, oh, but we've created 10,000 jobs over the last like few years. And you know what they're asking for now to complete the project?
More
More
money.
money.
Yeah, more money.
100 like originally the project was supposed to cost, oh my gosh, I think it was like $7 billion, and
Yeah.
they're asking for $100 billion more. That's $100 billion in addition to the tens of billions of dollars they've already spent. And they haven't built a thing. And they're like, look how many jobs you created.
What? And
What?
how many of those jobs went to homeless people? Like, I'm just
Yeah,
saying, it
like,
doesn't happen.
You've just
right?
stolen money. You haven't done anything. Like, gosh, like at least if you could say I created 10,000 jobs and we built this like high-speed functional rail network, they didn't even do that.
No.
Like we don't even have a thing to say like, well, I guess we have this cool thing. No, we have nothing. You just set that money on fire.
Yeah. So, but what if they just came forward and told the truth, and they're like, look, we have 10,000 jobs, but we haven't built a goddamn thing. This isn't working. That can't be, because they can't take that route, right? Like they can't go there, because
No.
then everybody will see that the emperor has no clothes. Like,
Yeah,
it's
of course
just gonna
they
be a
would
mess.
like they would never admit that. Like it's just
Right.
not gonna happen. But like I'm glad people were roasting the high speed rail folks just because like
Because
man,
they
like,
deserve it.
they deserve it. They do
Yeah.
deserve it. Like it is not an accomplishment. Like honestly, like if someone like came to me or like someone made this pitch in New York State, like, hey, we're going to spend $50 million. It will create like 2 jobs, but at the end of it, you're going to have like this great new piece of useful infrastructure that we all agree that we want, but it's only going to create like 2 jobs. I'd be like, oh, cool, man. Like that's fine. Like we get this
Right.
thing that we get to use. Like, all right, at least you accomplished something. Like
the
if
nuclear-
they're like, oh, we can build 2 more miles of subway in New York City, but it'll create like 5 jobs in the process, and it only costs us like $5 million. Okay, yeah, actually that's a pretty
not
reasonable
right.
trade-off,
Sure.
right? Like great. Like you're going to build at like Paris prices now. Awesome.
Yeah. Like let's for example say that it only takes 2 people to run a small nuclear power plant, right? And they
Right.
want to spend like, I don't know, $40 billion, but provide people with limitless, clean, carbon.
This is going to be mostly automated. It's only going to create like a couple jobs,
Yeah.
but like we're going to have abundant carbon-free, cheap energy like for like this whole region. But like really, it's only like 2 jobs. I'd be like, yeah, no, great, sign me
Yeah,
up.
do it. Like waste our tax money on that. Like overpay. Don't care. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like
that is a better trade-off than like most of the normal stuff that we're getting.
yeah. And look, cheap, clean energy is the biggest way the world moves itself out of poverty, right? Like I've been tripping out on that lately. You just that poverty causes violence, that the government causes poverty, and here we are with the world going to war, terrorist attacks all over the place. Arguably, I'm still not saying that the Baltimore incident is a terrorist attack, but I'm just saying people have gotten increasingly violent, and that's a problem, you know?
Yeah.
And it's the government. The government did it, bro. They did it. We've got them. People are going to start listening to us.
Well, that's the hope. But,
That is the hope. It is the hope. Yes. And look, man, prove me wrong. Talk to me about it, but like, don't make up scenarios about what I'm saying and then be like, get your own feelings hurt. Like, don't do that. That's silly. Hear me out, bro. I don't know. Should we keep going?
No, we should call it a night.
I've covered all the things that I wanted to cover. There was a couple more in there I could have thrown at you, but I didn't quite like. Who knows how it would have ended because I didn't have enough information to back my play.
Like save for next week.
All right, fair enough.
All right. Well, thanks, folks, for listening. Always appreciate you, as always. Have a great night, folks.